Well, I want to welcome everyone today to the EntreprenHer Show. My name is Heidi Richards Mooney, and I am your host. And I am delighted, as always, to interview our next guest. And wouldn't you know it, I met her online. So it's the way I've met most people that we've had the pleasure of interviewing, and I'm equally delighted to share her with you today. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Her name is Ellen Finkelstein. Is that the correct pronunciation?
It is.
Ellen has written numerous books on PowerPoint and several other topics, and since 1999 has been helping people to present more effectively via her websites, ellenfinkelstein.com and outstandingpresentationsworkshop.com. As an adjunct professor at Maharishi University of Management, Ellen has taught web writing, creating a usable website, e-business project for a final MBA project, and internet marketing. She also teaches a private internet marketing course. Now she's helping others gain the same success she has had. She has successfully helped numerous coaching clients and course participants improve their online business skills. Today, Ellen and I will be talking about how to make your presentations come to life. So I just want to say welcome, Ellen, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You have such a wealth of experience that we may sidetrack a little bit from the planned program, which is about PowerPoint. So let me get right into that first question. Why PowerPoint? In other words, Ellen, how did you become interested in first using PowerPoint, and why is it so important to your business?
I fell into it. I had written a book on another computer topic, and my publisher asked me to write a teacher's manual for a textbook that had already been written. This was on PowerPoint 1995. That was a long time ago. Wow. And I didn't know anything about PowerPoint, but I guess I'm a little gutsy. And so I said, sure, because they were going to give me the textbook. And so the teacher's manual was just writing questions and answers for uses like tests for the students. And if you give me the textbook, I can write questions and answers based on it. So that was how I first learned PowerPoint. And after that, it led to several other books on PowerPoint. And in 1999, I started ellenfinkelstein.com, and I started it as an author platform. At that time, authors were just starting to have what they called a platform, which meant that the publishers really expected you to do some of your own promotion of it. So I still have that website, and it's still about PowerPoint and this other topic, AutoCAD. It's a drafting program. And so it became, as I started writing books about it, I wrote articles about it. And so I became more, at that time I was trying to show myself as an expert on PowerPoint. That's what an author platform is. I wrote blog posts. Now there are over 600 blog posts just on PowerPoint on that website. And it was probably an exaggeration at that time because I wasn't an expert. But eventually I did become an expert on it. And so it became a big part of my business, which was training presenters how to present more effectively, how to avoid what we call death by PowerPoint. And more recently, I've been working with online entrepreneurs, helping them with their webinar presentations. Because those are the presentations that need to be very highly persuasive, and they need to convert because they're sales presentations. So I've done really, a wide variety, both corporate and online marketing types of presentations for people. And that's a lot of what I do.
And why is it so important to business? Obviously, as you mentioned, the death by PowerPoint, but why do people depend on it so much, would you say?
Well, people have always needed to present. People have been speaking for thousands of years, obviously. And before PowerPoint, well, it was something a little bit before that. But, you go back a little bit, we're talking about hard slides in a carousel, projector type of thing. So PowerPoint made it very easy for people to show what they were talking about, to have some kind of visual aid. You can still use a flip chart, but if you're doing things that you want something that's a little bit more professional than that, or you want to show charts based on data, PowerPoint makes it really easy. And so in all areas of business, and not only business, government, the military, in training and sales and nonprofits and online marketing and brick and mortar businesses, people always need to present. Now, there are kind of 3 or 4 reasons for presenting. One of them is sales. That's obvious. A big one that people often don't realize in larger organizations is internal presentation. So you're presenting, you have a proposal, you want to get approval for it, or you've been asked to do a project and you need to give a project update, or you've done some market research and you're showing it to your bosses and they are going to make a decision based on it. So that kind of presentation, internal presentation is huge. And so that's sales and internal presentation. And training is a big thing as well. So, and a lot of people of my subscribers are trainers. So whether you're doing it online training or you're doing offline training inside a company, whatever it is, training, teaching courses, teaching people how to do things, PowerPoint really helps make things come to life if you use it properly.
So then let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts of PowerPoint. So for instance, what are the most important things people need to keep in mind when they're using PowerPoint? And then we can come back to the don'ts or the mistakes that people make.
I think they're going to go hand in hand. So by me saying what you do, it's going to be pretty clear what not to do. But the most important thing is, I call it the tell and show method. And it's based on some research that a man named Michael Alley is a professor at the Penn State School of Engineering. And he did some research with different types of presentations. Now, remember, he's teaching engineering students, very technical. But he found that when he made a statement at the top of the slide and then showed that statement, that the students, he tested them in different types. The students did best on tests. They understood and remembered it best. And he called it assertion evidence. And I call it tell and show. It's the same concept, just a little bit of a snappier title. But the idea is that you need to make it clear on the slide title what the point is that you want people to remember. So they just get it like that. It's like a headline in a newspaper. An example would be, instead of saying third quarter sales, you might say third quarter sales are up 5%. So don't make people struggle to figure out the chart that's there. Just tell them what you want to tell them, and that kind of thing. And then below that, you would have the chart, the chart that would show sales up 5% or whatever it is. And you can show in many ways. A chart is one example, but photos are a great way of showing what you're trying to say. So giving an example. So people need to find a way to visualize what they're saying. And this makes your presentations so much more powerful. It just transforms the whole thing from, again, what we call death by PowerPoint to what I call life by PowerPoint. So I guess I'll go into a don't here, and it'll show you what the do is. So everybody's had the experience. I know everybody's had the experience of watching a presentation that's all text, pretty much all text on the slide, and the presenter reads the text that's on the slide. Now, survey after survey shows that people hate this. Their reaction is, I can read. But what actually happens when you do that is that you've put the text there up on the slide, and so they read the text. Now, they can read faster than you can read it, then you can speak it out. And so they read ahead of you, and in order to understand it, they shut out your voice and they just focus on reading. So they're not listening to you, the presenter. Now, when they get to the end, they finished it, then they turn their attention back to you, the presenter, and they find out what you're talking about, stuff they've already read. So why should they listen to you again? So they tune out a second time. So it's so totally counterproductive to put the text that you're going to say on the slide and to read it, even if you riff off of it a little bit. It's annoying, and people don't listen to you when you do that. So you need to find a way to visualize what you're doing. Now, on the plus side, you need to figure out what will be a powerful way to show what you're saying. So often it can be a photograph. Just to give you an example, I was doing some work on somebody's slide who was an internal trainer, and they were training people how to, I mean, it's like seemed like a mundane thing, but how to process packages, because they're a shipping company. And the idea is that if they don't pay attention to certain things, they could end up shipping like a bomb or, shipping something dangerous. So we had a picture instead. And so what they had was text was, excuse me. So we had a picture. So they had text that said, "Pay attention to this," with exclamation points. It was like they were yelling at the trainees, And so instead we had a picture of a little girl accepting a package, like a present with, gift wrapped and everything, with the statement, what would happen if, you didn't follow the rules. And it's so emotional that way because they start thinking of that little girl and what might happen. And then they're going to follow the directions, but you don't have to yell at them. You just have to visualize that.
Yeah, you're right, because it touches on an emotional chord that a word probably can't do by itself, or words, especially when you're talking about, we're so used to this, all the uppercase and the exclamations as shouting. That's how we've been trained to understand what that means. So you can't retrain us, or you could, but it might take a long time. So better yet. But would you say also that sometimes the graphics will confirm, say, when you mentioned a headline in the first part, and then you put a graphic. So the graphic kind of confirms the statement that you're making.
Exactly.
In that situation. And then in the second one, I use quotes quite often in my PowerPoints. I've read, and we'll talk about this, I won't even get into it, because I'll let you tell it since you're the expert. But I use quotes a lot. And a lot of times I'll even quote myself, because I know those are the things that people take from things and then will share them. So I try to make them very easy to share. So what would be a better way for me to share that quote on a PowerPoint? Which I don't believe in a lot of words on PowerPoint. I like a lot of visuals with the headline most of the time. But like I said, maybe the second or third slide will be a quote, and then maybe the second to the last slide will be a quote. So then rather than me reading it, because I heard what you said about their reading way ahead of you, and I do the same thing, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, and I'm reading this to them, and I'm wondering why they're already tuning me out. What would be a better way to present that? Just let them read it and say,
So first of all, when you want to talk about a quote, my husband is a professor, and his topic is basically religious scriptures, different ones that he compares with each other. And so that's his whole presentations are quotes from scripture. And, and he'll do compare the Torah and the New Testament and the Quran or something like that. And he'll show them all together. And so they're quotes. And that is your visual at that point, because that's what you're talking about. Now, so there are two ways to handle it. If it's a long quote, I would let them read it. I would just say, I'm just going to let you read it, because I think they'll internalize it better. And then you can go back over it again. It depends how you do it. My husband's, going really deep into it. He has a PhD, a professor, he wants to go into phrase by phrase.
Right. He's given the philosophical viewpoint of the quotes. That's a little different.
Yeah. So he's kind of analyzing it. So, but then you can go back and go through it if you want, and then after having already read it, then they'll be willing to follow you phrase by phrase. If it's short, if it's 2 sentences, just read it. It's okay. They're not going to read ahead of you. 1 or
2, but I've had times when I've done a 4 or 5 sentence. And so what I thought of doing when you mentioned that is maybe just highlighting the key words in the quote in a second PowerPoint and just say, by the way, this is what you need to keep in mind and what we're going to talk about or whatever, maybe.
So again, if there's if it's an inspirational quote and if it's a technical quote, again, different types of things. So if you want them to remember some specific words because you're actually teaching, specific things that are a little bit more technical or specific, then yes, highlight the words. If it's inspirational, just read it.
Yeah, just read it. Yeah. Well, usually I teach a lot on social media, similar to what you do. Not with the PowerPoint, not as technical, of course. So let's talk about words on a slide again. Let's go back to when you're making a point or making points in a presentation. Say like the 5 key things you need to keep in mind, or you're going to learn in this program 5 key things. How would you present that on a PowerPoint? I'm sorry we don't have one to show people, but
no, I understand. Right. So this is very common, and that might be at the beginning. And so what I would do is I would not even put that text, there are going to be 5 things you're going to be learning. I wouldn't even put that on a slide at all. I would just say it. Okay. And then I would say, and here's the first one, and have each of those ones on a separate slide. At the end of those 5, it depends. There's this principle, like you tell them what you're going to say, and then you say it, and then you tell them what you told them. So it's okay to put them all on one slide, even at the beginning. Just say, these are the 5 we're going to cover, and then break it out, discuss each one separately on a separate slide so that you can show them. The point is that people aren't going to remember it nearly as much without the pictures. People remember, there's a principle called the picture superiority principle. And there's a lot of research on it. And it shows basically that people remember images more than words. And this is something that's come from our ancient history, where it was more important to see the snake in the grass, because it was a safety issue. And the part of the brain is called the visual cortex, I guess. The primary visual cortex is much, much bigger than the primary auditory cortex. So even the part of the brain that processes visual input is much bigger. And so these are basic principles, and marketers certainly know how important images are. You talk about social media, I'm sure you tell people everything you put up there should have an image.
Exactly.
Because
everything.
Yeah, everything. So people notice images and more than words. But for some, recently I couldn't say it nicely. The thought came to me, why do marketers who know that become stupid when they're in front of a PowerPoint presentation? It just came to me like that. And it was like, they know images are important. They know it in all the rest of their marketing. They know the power of images, not only for making people notice, but for their power of persuasion, because of the emotion, how important emotion is to make a decision, and how important images are for presenting that emotion, for conveying that emotion, just like we see in commercials, that kind of thing. They're all over the top emotional. And so, yet when they come in front of PowerPoint, they just like, they forget it. They forget this, that they know everywhere else. So it's just that it's so important to think the same way you do in PowerPoint. And the thing that's so important about PowerPoint is that very often in a sales presentation, that's the point of sale. You're doing a webinar, that's the point of sale, or even if it's a live presentation. So it's all very good to do it in your social media, but that's not the point of sale. That's the point of, trying to get somebody to click through. It is a conversion, but, to something free usually. But when you're trying to make money, usually PowerPoint goes along with it, and that's when you're trying to convert people. So you just really need to realize that point that you want to use. And I guess a big point I would say here is big pictures, not little pictures, not little postage stamps, but big pictures. So yeah, if you want to summarize it, it's okay, but then break it out, and give each point an image. At the end, people are going to remember those 5 images, not the 5 points. And then they'll be able to reconstruct the 5 points from the images. If you give people a list of 5 things unless, they practice some mnemonic kind of thing for it, they won't remember. But people do remember the images because of the emotional impact. I had an amazing experience. I was at an internet marketing conference in April, and I met a man who had some type of incident, but he lost his short-term memory. And one of the things that he said is that the only things he remembers are things that have emotional impact.
Wow.
So emotional impact is so important that even somebody with no short-term memory, that will help them remember. But even, people who don't have that problem will remember those things more. So then break it, and then you can summarize it again, those 5 points again. And a great way to do that is to take a screenshot of the basic part of that picture and put it in as an icon next to those 5 points when you put them in as a summary, so that or at the end, if you're summarizing the whole thing, I often do like a circular thing, and I just have the pictures of the 5 parts or the 4 parts or whatever it is. And then people remember back to that slide because it's the same image.
And those callbacks are so important because it does reinforce the learning, I think. So what are some other key things to keep in mind when doing a PowerPoint that are really important? Good afternoon, Luke, and welcome for joining us. We've got a visitor. Yay.
Yay. Hi, Luke. So another thing I would say is that almost all presentations are timed. So here you're in a very informal format and you said, oh, we could go 30 minutes or 60 minutes. It doesn't make too much difference. We could do either one, but that's not common. Usually in a webinar, you've given people a time, or if you're asked to present, you have a time. And so how many times have you heard people say, oh, I ran out of time. I'm just going to rush through these last few slides or something like that, or maybe not have enough material. So you need to practice. And there's really no, if you put out some slides or write a script, there's no way to know how long that's going to take without testing it. And you test it by speaking it out and timing it. And I highly recommend recording it and listening back to it, and you'll find some things to improve. And that's the way you improve your presentation skills.
I always do that. I always record my presentation before I give it at least once or twice. And that way it also helps me so that I don't have to read the slides as much, or my notes. And the other thing that it does, it helps me see what's probably either redundant or not necessary.
Exactly.
Delete a lot of stuff. And then you can see what you're missing too.
Yeah, you put yourself in the shoes of the audience. You become the audience and you see it from a different perspective. Right.
So what tools would you recommend to use to record it?
It can be anything. So, for example, you can use a webinar service that records. I use Zoom.
Me too. I love Zoom.
Yeah. So you could just use Zoom and create the webinar for yourself and record it and listen back to it. That would be an easy thing to do. You can do a Google Hangout to yourself. And you can just use your webcam software. The software that comes with you can record.
Like that. Movie Maker or one of those, yeah.
You don't even need Movie Maker. The webcam has its own software that lets you record a video.
Oh, that's true. That's
true. People kind of, So that's another thing you can use. You can use your phone.
Yes. Anything, exactly. And I use Screencast-O-Matic for most of mine because I can highlight the parts of the screen I want to highlight, and I like that.
Right. I use Camtasia, which is similar.
And Camtasia, yes. And any other mistakes that people make that you think are important to not make?
So it depends on the type of presentation that you're doing. So I've been talking a lot about webinars and sales webinars, and one of the big mistakes that people make is they don't connect the content. There's a very common type of webinar where somebody offers some free information and then there's an offer at the end.
Right.
And they need to be connected. So sometimes you'll see people will just kind of give some information and then make the offer. And it's not, it's somewhat related, of course, but it needs to lead to it. So the information needs to make people realize that they need more. And then that's what you're offering. So I think that's a mistake that people make when they're trying to sell. Another thing I think that people do in sales webinars, that's especially when they're live in a more corporate situation, is kind of assuming that people want to hear what you want them to hear, which is not really necessarily true. And so you really need to know your audience. You need to know your goal and your audience. One of the questions that you wrote to me in advance was, what do I first ask a new client when I work with them? And there are two things. And one is, what is your goal and who is your audience? And so I'll tell you a funny story. So I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago at Radio City Music Hall in New York, Paul and Ringo got back together and did a concert. And it was a concert to raise money to teach transcendental meditation in some inner city schools to help them with the stress that some of these schools students had, even at the middle school level. Like at middle school level, students had high blood pressure and I forget what it's called, but it's like a precursor to diabetes. So So in the afternoon, there was a man who had done research on TM, and he was speaking to the reporters. And what he did was he just showed them some of the research on TM. But he thought that his goal was just to give them information, to be informative. And he forgot that his real goal was to get these reporters who were basically popular culture reporters, right? Paul and Ringo getting back together, and with these other people who were there. Moby was there and other people. And his real goal was to get them to put some of the research into their articles. And they weren't interested in the scientific research. They're popular culture reporters. So he needed to create a presentation that was more emotional, that was more powerful, that made them really feel the statistics that showed that half of these middle school students had medical symptoms of high stress, which was just kind of crazy given their age. They were
Right.
11 to 14 or something like that. And it's you can do that with not only some statistics but photographs of the kids. That's how you do it. And I think I came up with something for him afterwards when I was telling him about this, like show a photograph of the kids and then put a semi-transparent rectangle on top of half of them, and on top of that put half of these students have medical symptoms of stress. Just kind of cut the photograph in half that way with this rectangle, with this, anyway, something like that. And that creates the emotional impact that would impress the reporters, because the concert was to raise money. It was for that purpose. So again, you just have to know what your goal is, and you can really and you can really miss it by thinking you're just trying to inform when you're really trying to persuade, that kind of thing.
So there is a big difference between informing and persuading. Informing is just educating people, but persuading is so much more. It's getting to them on a deeper level, correct? On a more emotive level.
Right, absolutely. And I used to think that trainers, for example, were really just trying to inform, but the trainers on my list told me I was wrong. And they said, no, we have to persuade because we want them to implement what we're telling them. We have to persuade them it's important enough. Like that example with that trainer who was training employees how to process packages. It's like, this stuff is so important, but it's for them, it's just a procedure that they have to follow. We're telling them they have to follow. But if we can do it in a persuasive way, then they're going to implement it because they're going to feel it, like with that picture of that little girl getting her birthday present type of thing. So they were the ones who told me that not only was it important to persuade, but that when they used persuasive techniques on their slides, that it was effective in getting their employees to pay attention and to really feel what they were saying.
Excellent. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you. So far, we're just having a great time. I wanted to reiterate that I'm speaking to Ellen Finkelstein about how to make your presentations come to life. And I wanted to welcome our guests that have joined us recently, Hillary Steele, Roy Montero, very dear friend of mine. And if y'all have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section. We're primarily talking about PowerPoint, but we could talk about anything because Ellen is an expert in internet marketing and a lot of different things online and has been doing this. Ellen, I've been learning this stuff since 1995 and probably teaching it since early 2000. So we are about the same when it comes to, the generation of and I believe I'm an educator, so and a trainer. But I agree.
I think of myself like that in that way too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of what type of client you work with, and how do they find out about you and your services? In other words, how do you market to people?
I have two websites, one of the major websites. One is ellenfinkelstein.com and the other is changetheworldmarketing.com. And I think you can tell by the name that changetheworldmarketing.com is about marketing. And ellenfinkelstein.com was that when I started in 1999 as an author platform. And so a lot of people do find me, ellenfinkelstein.com, because it's been around for a long time and I have a huge amount of content. It gets 300,000 visits a month. And so a lot of it is just organic search. There's just so much content there on topics that people feel they need to know about. And so that, and of course I have a sign up form and I give them some free training. It's called 13 Techniques to Make Designing Your Slides Easy. And so I give them that. And I have a regular newsletter and I give courses, I do webinars, I have ebooks, all sorts of stuff like that. And one of the most popular things is what I call one-on-one coaching. And basically I work with somebody one-on-one on their presentations. So what I find is that it's not easy to make over. I'm not a designer. And in fact, one of my ebooks is called Slide Design for the Non-Designer, because anybody can design powerful, effective, clear, persuasive slides, basically using this tell and show method. You have some text that tells the point, and then you show the point. And I have some things, 4 layouts that always look good, things like that are simple. But none of this is very complicated. I don't do stuff that looks like it's done in Photoshop. Photoshop makes me tear my hair out. So I do, it's all very simple, but I find that it's not that I want to make over somebody else's slides, although I do that for people, but it works better when I'm working with them and they tell me the point of each slide. What do you want to say on this slide? Well, then we could do it this way. What do you want to say on this slide? And maybe we move things around. I recently worked on a sales presentation with a woman, and she sells this amazing thing. It's like a headset that's used in hospitals that gives people they're wireless, but they have a little SD card in it that has specialized music that helps keep people calm because of the rhythm of the music. So she sells this to hospitals. She had at the very beginning, about me, about her and about the company. And I said, move that to the end. That's not what the hospitals want to hear. They want to hear about the product and what it does. So I realized that when you're doing a webinar that people have come to you and they don't know you, you do have to say something about yourself at the beginning. But when you are going on a business sales call, you've spoken to them, they've looked you up, they've agreed to have you come. They already know who you are, and you're right there in front of them. So you don't have to say about me until the very end. And then it becomes kind of like a testimonial type of thing at the end. It's like something that makes them feel more comfortable buying from you, but you don't want to put it at the beginning. So we organize the text, we do a lot of editing, and we redesign the slides. We do it together. And I do that for online entrepreneurs too. So if they're doing a webinar, then we'll go over the slides and try to make them clearer and more persuasive, all of that.
So let's talk a little bit about the resources for PowerPoint. So for instance, if someone listening wanted to do their own PowerPoints, are there resources that you could recommend for, say, let's start with templates and then move into like graphics and those sort of things. So, but I guess templates would be the first place I would start. Or would you say just start with a Google presentation, Google Docs or Google Drive and do it that way?
First of all, it doesn't make any difference whether you use PowerPoint or Google Slides or whatever you want to, whatever you want to use. Keynote is another big one. So, yeah. So that doesn't really make any difference. I don't recommend very much in the way of templates. They're called themes in PowerPoint, because most of them have too much design on them that really interferes with you putting big images on, and it just interferes. So I do use a theme where I have a border around the edge, but the middle part is all solid white, and I just work with a white slide. So there's some little branding around the edge, but that's it. So, I don't think it's necessary. I think, you should never have the idea that I need some color to spice up the slide. If that's what you're doing, then your slides aren't engaging enough. You aren't using enough big pictures on your slides. And when people often have the text fly in, with animation, and things twirling around, all the research shows that makes people understand and remember less because it's distracting. So that's not what you don't want to distract people from the content. You want to focus on the content. So just make things simple but interesting. A great photo is going to capture people's attention, especially if it's a person's face that's looking at you, something like that. So yeah, people will pay attention to that. So in terms of themes,
take it or leave it.
Yeah, take it or leave it. But mostly leave it.
Yeah, mostly leave it. So then let's talk a little bit more about pictures then. I'm sure that you would think like most marketers like myself would think that you want to use your own pictures as much as you possibly can. But if you're making a point about something and you don't have the right picture, are there places that people can go, and where do you recommend, what kind of resources do you recommend people use for those type of pictures?
Sure. So about a year and a half ago, all the way back into ancient history, PowerPoint had its own library of photographs.
Right.
And they were great. They were wonderful.
Love
But they
them.
don't anymore.
Yeah.
And they got sued for a couple of them. Anyway, it's a long story. So you want to obviously you always want to use legal pictures.
Right.
So one of the places I love is pixabay.com.
Yeah, I love Pixabay. I'll write that down.
So
That's a free site.
It's a free site, and everything is in the is in public domain. CC0 is the Creative Commons license. It's CC0 is really what it is. Yeah. So I think that's a great place to go. There's another website called freeimages.com. Not as good, but also you can find things there. So one thing that's kind of interesting is that not everything has to be a photograph. Sometimes you want to create some kind of diagram or illustration. And it turns out that PowerPoint is a pretty good graphics program. So yeah, I have a course called PowerPoint for Marketing Graphics. So you can use the shapes, and you can mix shapes with images and put things together, and you can crop things and slice and dice things and all this type of stuff. And so you can create some nice graphics with PowerPoint, even without being graphically inclined or being what I call artistically challenged.
For me, it would be graphically challenged. I'm just trying to find a graphic that I can just add words to if I can, because I am not good with making charts.
Right. Well, PowerPoint, I mean, if you have data, PowerPoint creates its own graphs, from the data automatically. There's quite I can teach people about how to create charts or graphs that are clear, because the defaults aren't usually that good.
Right.
So, so there are things about that, but that's a little bit more technical. But usually, yeah, finding photo, and there are websites that sell photographs fairly inexpensively as well. You can, get some credits and, have things. I use 123RF, I think it's called.
I use graphicstock.com, 123, Deposit Photo. There's so many of them.
There are.
Graphicstock is nice because once a year or twice a year, they have a nice sale, and where you can buy unlimited downloads for a certain price. I think it's something like $99, and it's usually good for a year. So I always wait till that sale comes up, because it's about a third the price of the regular subscription for a year. Graphicstock is not as good for a lot of different things. I've actually found better pictures on Pixabay than Graphicstock for some things, like a lot for technology. But backgrounds and color and animals and things like that. So, you're right. There's a lot of them. 123RF, I'll put that in there. I like to put these in the chat area, because people will want to know how to find those places. So those are good. Wow, Ellen, you have given so much wonderful information in such a short time. And not that we're almost out of time. And the reason I tell people 30 minutes to an hour is, if I say an hour to everybody, it scares them. But I will tell you, I have never had an interview go less than 55 minutes. So
shows you a good interviewer.
I say it's in your hands. And most of the time, my guests end up speaking the entire hour. So that's just kind of a psychological selling point for getting people to want to be on these shows, which is great, because they say people's attention span, but I like the longer shows, even though I hear a lot about people saying, oh, you should do a 15-20 minute. I think we're just getting into the depth of the conversation in 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to quickly open it up and ask if anybody who's watching or listening has any questions. Like my dear friend Roy, who's an amazing internet marketer, and I've known him for many years. I don't know if you know Roy Montero, but if not, Ellen, you must meet this gentleman. He's and he raises border collies. I believe his wife is a nurse, if I'm not mistaken. Roy, is that still the case? And he's been married a lot of years. He's a great guy. So
okay, I just followed him.
Yes, definitely follow Roy, because he also has his own show on here, and he's a wealth of information. So Where do you get your creative ideas, Ellen? In other words, do you have any kind of a process or something that you do to come up with ideas for your business and for your clients' businesses?
Well, first of all, once you have experience, you kind of just settle down a little bit, and things kind of bubble up from inside, I suppose. In terms of visualization of ideas, I sometimes have to take the time to think about it. It doesn't always come instantly. So, for example, I had a presentation that somebody wanted me to do. So it was kind of like from Death by PowerPoint to Life by PowerPoint, but it was more like from meh to memorable or something like that. But I on the title slide, I wanted to show that transformation, and I just really didn't know how to do it. And it just took me a while, and I kind of came up with the idea of taking a picture of a flower that was this beautiful orange color, and then in PowerPoint you can make a copy of it and you can turn it into grayscale. And so then I had this grayscale one, and then I just faded that out into the color one. And so it was just a very subtle thing. It went from grayscale to bright color, but it represented the transformation that I was trying to talk about. And I have another graphic that I do that shows these old-fashioned slides that used to be in the carousels. And one has a dead tree and the other has a live tree. And so from Death by PowerPoint to Life by PowerPoint, and fade one into the other. So I think I actually sell a product called 50 Business Concepts, because conveying concepts is not always easy. You kind of have to think about something different. So flexibility, you might want to use a flex straw, those flex straws at the band or something like that, or somebody in a complicated yoga position. And almost, you want to talk about reaching out to people. And so you might want to have a picture of a bridge, or you want to avoid total stereotypes like, two men in suits shaking hands kind of thing. So you want to find something a little bit more interesting than that. And a bridge can often do that. So you just have to think of ways of basically metaphors that you're using for your concepts.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about reading material. What books are you currently reading and or could recommend to our audience? And they don't necessarily have to be PowerPoint related. I think the one thing people love is when my guests say the books that they're currently reading. You want to grab the book on weekend? You can grab it.
I don't see where it is, but there's a new book by Nancy Duarte. Let's see if I can find the name of it, because it's not coming to me.
So while you're looking for that,
it's called Illuminate. Illuminate
by Nancy Duarte, and is that Duarte?
Yeah, Nancy Duarte. Nancy Duarte is probably considered the best presentation designer in the United States, and she's written 3 books. The first was called Slidology. Well, she's written other books, and the second, which was all about do like diagrams and just how to create your slides. And she's very much of a perfectionist. Every book she does is like over the top with research and all of that. It was a good book. And then the second one was Resonate, which was about storytelling. And she analyzed like all of these great speeches and came up with this basic pattern, which was, you start from here and then you go kind of like, what if it goes up? But then it could be like this, but maybe it could be like that, kind of went up this up and down kind of thing. And you just showed the contrast of, what if we didn't do this, but what if we did do this, but what if this happened, but then maybe we could do this. So that was Resonate. And Illuminate is, is a little bit more also about communicating in general. So a little bit more in general about communication, but all of her books are good.
Excellent.
And they're all about presentation design. Yeah.
And that's good because people are going to need that, either that or they're going to call you or contact you, which we're going to get to in a moment. But what are you currently working on, Ellen?
I'm working on a product called Profit with Webinars.
Excellent.
And so I happen to think that webinars are like as big as Gutenberg's invention of the printing press.
I would agree. I love it. I love webinars.
So what I mean by that is that that the printing press expanded knowledge, made knowledge available to many, many more people. And the thing that came more recently was blogging, which allowed anybody to publish what they wanted anywhere, and anybody in the world to see it. And with webinars, does that for speaking. So that's something that's very cool about Blab, because it's just the webcam, although we were just talking beforehand about the fact that they're going to have slide sharing, screen sharing now. We haven't tried that out, but I think that combination is going to be wonderful, an amazing thing, because it is a little hard for me to talk about slides without showing slides.
I think you did a marvelous job. You're giving people a lot of ideas that they'll now have to say, I have to go to your websites to learn more.
Okay, I hope so.
Yes.
So, and I'm doing this on changetheworldmarketing.com. And I'm trying to help people with the entire process of the webinar. So I'm starting with a planning worksheet that helps people plan the whole webinar. And then, eventually it will lead to a course in which one of the topics will be the slides, but just one little piece of, there'll be 6 modules, and it'll be a piece of one of those modules. It's something that I do that other people who teach webinars aren't doing. But in general, webinars are a way for you to reach more people. I once did a webinar series, this Outstanding Presentations Workshop. The second year I did it, we had 3,000 people register from 97 countries. 97 countries, that's crazy. I actually had people write in there, from a list, choose their country. And so you can reach people from all over the world with online marketing. I got an email from somebody in South Sudan a few months ago, which is the newest country in the world, and more recently from somebody in Sudan. And it was so cool because he found one of my blog posts, and he just took this idea. He was going to write to me and asked if I'd ever heard of Sudan. Well, of course I've heard of Sudan, but he said that he had just graduated with an IT degree and with a computer science degree, and he'd just gotten a job in an IT company, and they asked him to do a presentation, which is why he came to me. And I went, yeah, I've heard of Sudan, but we never hear good news from Sudan. That there are people getting computer science degrees and getting jobs in IT companies in Sudan. No, we don't hear that kind of stuff. And then I got a more poignant email from somebody in Syria, who was talking about how bad the situation is there. I just kind of wrote back and said, Mohammed, all I can do is wish you and your country peace. And he wrote right back and thanked me for my thoughts. So you can touch people all over the world with not online marketing in general, but webinars in specific. And when you record them, as we've been talking about, how most people watch the recording, but then they can watch it at any time. So you get people in other time zones, halfway around the world. So I just think webinars are a really special thing for getting knowledge out there, for teaching, for selling as well. And one of the things I really love, we both talked about how we both like Zoom, is I really like the webcam portion of it. Here's another little tip. So when you do a webinar, don't hide behind your slides. So use that webcam. And one of the things that decided me to change from GoToWebinar to Zoom is the fact that GoToWebinar doesn't record the webcam. So only people who see it live see it. It's on a transparent layer and it doesn't record. But in Zoom it does. So people, you can.
And
it's me.
That's why I switched from GoToWebinar and WebEx to Zoom, because I just love the fact that you can. I like, not that at first it was really kind of crazy watching myself talk on a screen, because you're looking at yourself, but then I got kind of used to it, because I realized this is what everybody else sees when you're talking in person. And so and I think that it makes people know, like, and trust you more.
Absolutely.
If you're a likable, trusting person. And I think it also helps to persuade people, because when you're just showing presentations and they don't see who you are, then it takes longer to build the trust. So I think webinars are wonderful. And I think PowerPoint combined with webinars and using the two together, it's so powerful. Ellen, I want to say thank you for being with us today. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask a couple last questions. And the first one is, in addition to your own website, what website or websites can you simply not live without besides yourself, your Google? Because I know a lot of people want to tell me Google, and I'm like, no, I don't care about Google. We all love Google.
I think I'm going to end up with Facebook, but what I really want to say is that the things that I can't do without are communities, online communities. So they don't have to be Facebook, it could be Facebook groups, or they could be, Google community, Google plus communities, or whatever it is. But I don't remember how we met, but I think it was in a group.
It was.
Yeah. So I really recommend participating in online communities, and you can partner with people, you can learn, you can teach, all of that.
I think we met on Facebook somewhere, and then I signed up for your newsletter or your weekly whatever you send me, and then I said, you know what, I need to get this woman on our show. So that's the way the internet works, and I think you're right. Social media is just such a wonderful way to meet. And I'm not saying like-minded people, but people who you resonate with, because I think like-mindedness is a misnomer. I don't want to be around people who all think like me. If I did, I would stay home and go to networking events about the things I'm interested in. What I like is to learn from people, right? In different,
you like to expand your horizons.
Exactly. That's why I like to travel. I think most people do that for that reason. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Roy, you are so full of wonderful, pithy remarks. I just love that. I love what he said about friends educating each other. So I wanted to make sure we got that on the recording for those listening in on YouTube. Hi, if you're watching on YouTube or watching on the Entrepreneur Show on our website, EntreprenHers.com. And again, Ellen, what's next for you? I know you're working on your webinar about webinars. What's next for you?
I'm also looking to, I just started a new, I had this funny thing with my coach. I said, I've been spending a lot of time on this Profit with Webinars. I said, that's it. No more products. I have enough products because I'm a writer and I create products. But so it's like 2 minutes after that, I just hired a VA, a virtual assistant, and I have a test that I've used for many years. It's been really helpful. And so he was doing a challenge on outsourcing. So I said, I'll give them my VA test. And so he said, well, yeah, write up a blog post and give us the VA thing, but make it an affiliate link. And so it ended up being like a whole new website now.
Oh my!
That I'm doing with a friend. I can't tell you the URL yet because there's nothing there. But the idea will be all about doing less and accomplishing more. And so outsourcing is one way of doing it. Automating things. Let's see what else. Maybe like having other people write for you with PLR. Things like that. Just different way. Oh, and time management is another big thing.
Yeah.
Ways of doing less and earning more and making things more automated so that it's kind of like a passive income thing. So we have this wonderful, I have a weekly, which I have to have you on, a weekly series called Star Power Half Hour. And I have these wonderful recordings that people have given me over the months, and some of them have to do with that. So I'll just be able to repurpose them and make them available to people. So I'm excited about that as well. So Profit with Webinars is one thing, and this other new venture.
Excellent. How exciting. Well, you'll be sure and let me know so that I can share it with my tribe.
I will. Thank you.
I love that. Tribe is wonderful. What's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
So it depends on whether you think of yourself as more of a marketer or more of just a presenter, and that's want to be your focus. If it's more on PowerPoint, then ellenfinkelstein.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter or contact button there. If your interest is more in terms of online marketing and webinars and more general in that, changetheworldmarketing.com. Or you can come to both.
Or I would say just check her out on both sites. Ellen, thank you so much for being with us today, sharing how to make your presentations come to life. I think you did an amazing job, and I'm just thrilled that we had this chance to be together. And obviously, I'm excited when we have great guests like Roy and Hillary and others. And so thank you again, Ellen. for being with us today. Be sure and visit her websites, ellenfinkelstein.com, and marketing for her marketing. If you're interested in marketing, change the world marketing.com. That's correct, right?
Yep, that's right.
So make sure everybody does that. And again, I'm Heidi Richards-Mooney. You've been listening or watching the EntreprenHer show. Be sure and visit us at EntreprenHers.com and see who we have coming up, new guests, and you can watch a lot of the replays there. Because one thing I noticed on Blab is that they only have the last few, and I've done so many more, and I don't see all of them now archived on my page. So I think that they rotate them or something. I'm not exactly sure, so I have to do a little investigating. But you'll be able to see all of the past shows, and be sure to visit Roy Montero, Ellen. And again, thank you so much, Ellen, for being with us today. Have a great day.
Thank you. You're a great interviewer.
Thanks. My pleasure. Take care.